I have Chris on the day. Welcome back to the Eddie Olson podcast. Chris and I met on social media over LinkedIn. And when we got together and we had a call, we knew that there was a click there. And today we decided to schedule a podcast. When we did so, Riverside would not work for us. And we instantly faced problems. Rather than just canning the idea, we decided to move on and we decided to go ahead and move over to Zoom and do this old school video editing. So, Chris, welcome. Thank you so much for booking the time and being patient through our adverse problems that we had to face to get on the screen together.
Hey, no worries, man. It's an honor to be here, Eddie. So, of course, I'm willing to wait a little bit. And you said that this is an old school podcast style, but how old school is Zoom really?
Well, that's a good question. But one thing I love about the Riverside platform is it makes it very, very easy for everything to be automated. So AI, does a lot of work with splicing and creating shorts and, doing a lot of work that we just don't have to do. So a lot of work is done for us. So I call this old school.
Awesome. Love it. Well, I'm here for it.
Cool. So, man, tell me a little bit about you. Let's tell the audience about what you do. And let's just get started from there because I know that the audience needs to know more about what you do.
Perfect. Let's let her rip, man. So I am a performance psychology expert. So I've been studying performance psychology for the past 19 years of my life. And I've been doing this in a bunch of different settings. And I've always been interested in psychology ever since high school. When I noticed that the naughty kids would always get picked to go to the principal's office after school every day, and I wondered why. And I wanted to help them out, but also I didn't want to get beat up by them. And so I decided to hit the books and learned about psychology. And here we are 3 degrees later, and in a master's program later, and I started working with kids on probation right out of college. And then I got involved with a high school where I was the only male faculty member. It was a high school for only pregnant and parenting teens.
Really?
So that was wild. And I learned a lot about life there, we'll say. And then I worked at domestic abuse projects. So I worked with the men who were perpetrators of violence in their home and the kids who had seen it all and sometimes were the victims or survivors. I worked in case management. I've worked with people who have been addicts. I've worked with people who have been living homeless, out on the street, things like that, experiencing a whole number of things. I worked at a crisis residence where people go where they want to die, but don't have the means to do it themselves. So I've really run the gamut in psychology. But as most psychologists will tell you, it doesn't pay the bills. So when I was living in my friend's basement, I was 33 years old, Eddie, and like way too old to be living in your friend's basement. And finally, one of my friend's wives, of all people, got sick of me complaining about not having any money. And she said, "Why don't you do something about it?" And so I didn't know what to do. And I asked her what to do. Honestly, I was like, okay. Yeah. And I never had thought that money was a tool or money is something to be solved. I had this very stagnant, scarce mindset about money that the only way to help the world is to do therapy. That was my belief at the time. Well, I asked around. I went to the library and asked, where do I start learning about financial education? And that librarian, bless his heart, gave me Rich Dad Poor Dad. And that's how I got involved in real estate. Bought a duplex, bought another duplex, bought another duplex, 1031. Now we build homes in Florida and we do some long-term rentals and short-term. Yeah, go ahead.
So I want to make sure we capture this right here. So you went from 33 years old in the friend's basement because this may be a little harsh, but because you had some financial shortcomings and wasn't able to maybe just step out. So you were living in your friend's basement at 33. Mm-hmm. And then from that point, you went to buying real estate.
Yes, sir.
Through some efforts. So,
yep.
That is amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
High five, my friend.
Yeah. Yeah, dude, that's awesome. So I was making $17 an hour when I bought my first duplex, and I
That
worked
is
2
awesome.
jobs.
That is awesome.
Yeah, I was a hungry fella when I bought that duplex because I had eaten nothing but peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for a month prior. What I would do is I would buy 2 loaves of bread,
Uh-huh.
jelly, and peanut butter, put them all together, pre-make them, so I'd have like 20. That would be my allotment for the week. Yeah, it was bare bones, but when you've got a big vision, man, it propels you. In
Yeah,
psychology, we call that solution focused theory. When you set your very big why, you're more likely to work towards it. That works better than what's called task centered, which is like, what's my very next thing to do?
right.
That propels you along a little bit, but having that big purpose really moves you forward.
Yes. And so that is something that also people have reached out to me over the years. They follow me on Facebook or LinkedIn or Instagram, and they're like, Eddie, you're like this serial entrepreneur, but you always seem positive. You always seem to accomplish what you go after. You have these great big goals, man, and you're lucky enough to do these things. And I'm like, well, luck's a funny word. And essentially I used to call it luck myself
Hmm.
because it felt that way. But it wasn't luck. It was honestly you know, spiritual belief. And then also the things that the mind, like the things that you manifest, the things that you say out of your mouth and the positive affirmations that you make for yourself, that I was able to accomplish these things. It was all because of mindset and the way that I was like you, I was hungry. So everything I go after, I'm hungry. And it's not just a task. Like there's certain things that in the mind are changing. Like you've got to become the billionaire before you are the billionaire. And, for mindset wise, and you've got to act differently. You got to think differently. You got to tell yourself different words. You got to show up for different meetings. You got to have a different group of friends. Like for instance, the thermostat analogy is something Ed Milet talks about all the time. And for instance, uh, you've got all these people out here that are billionaires, but one I like to refer to is Donald Trump. And, Donald Trump cannot be a millionaire. He might lose everything, but he will become back to a billionaire because that's the way he thinks. It's the way he's programmed. He's got himself to that point. So you essentially had to do that yourself. I assume that you're going to be this apartment building owner and you're going to own one and then two. So you had to physically like set yourself up, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I didn't know what I was doing. But I think that's what I've realized from talking to other syndicators and entrepreneurs is that you have to step forward when you don't know what you're doing
Exactly.
and you have to go. And I still fall into perfectionism and fear of failure still to this day. Absolutely. I fight that all the time where I want things to be perfect. I want things to look awesome. I want to seem really strong and really intelligent, really smart in the marketplace. But the ironic part is just getting stuff out there and being more authentic,
Yeah.
being vulnerable with who I am and who I'm not attracts way more people to my sphere than if I puff my chest and have bravado and just say,
Yeah.
learn this from me, learn this from me. If I'm open to hearing from other people, if I'm open to owning my mistakes, I allow other people to help out. I
Yeah.
allow other people to reach out to me, and I allow them to see me as a human. And that's
Yeah.
what we all are. We
It's
want
out.
to
Yeah.
connect with people who we know, like, and trust. And everyone wants to know, how do you know, like, and trust? Well, social media is good for knowing and liking, but you don't trust anybody. You trust by sharing the flaws, warts and all, as my grandma used to say.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, one you had mentioned something and I started a story and I thought, man, I'm talking too long. I need to let Chris talk again. But you mentioned something that is the secret sauce for me. And it's the one thing that it enables me to accomplish my goals and my targets and do things. Is it that passion and the purpose, and it's the why. Like why I am doing what I'm doing because there's a huge purpose behind this accomplishment or getting to this place financially or creating this business that employs other people that need it in the market. It's the purpose, and it's that why. When that why and that purpose is so big, you can do anything, in my opinion.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And what I think we know about the world is you only go as far as you believe you can. You mentioned earlier about Donald Trump. He doesn't have a millionaire mindset. He has a billionaire mindset. I absolutely believe that. I've never thought about that perspective before, to
Mm-hmm.
be honest, Eddie, but I 100% agree that he's a billionaire. And if he were to lose it all, that he would get it back,
Well, I gotta,
because that's just how you know how to do it. If you know how to do something, you'll do it again, and there's less worry about it. And it's not the money thing. It's interesting because when, I don't have billions of dollars. We're doing great, and I love doing what I'm doing. So that's like, if I think that's the definition of retiring, when you can do work that doesn't feel like work. This doesn't feel like work, man.
no,
Like, I love chatting with you. So we're basically a couple of retired dudes. We're just doing this instead
exactly.
of golfing. But I think if you have enough money to get by, to pay the mortgage, to live off of, go on a vacation or two, anything above that is really kind of like purpose. Like, what fuels you? What questions do you need to answer about yourself? What part of your psyche is an itch that needs to be scratched? I'm working with a client now who is close to a billionaire. He owns a lot of buildings in San Francisco and Nevada and things like that. And he doesn't have to work at all. And then one day it hit him that he doesn't need to work at all. And that like bummed him out big
Yeah.
time. And so what we did was we set up just like a zero stimulus environment for him. So all he did for 3 weeks long was hang out in his apartment, reading books, of course, watching like YouTube shorts. Who doesn't get caught in those, right?
Right.
And then walking his dog. That's like all he did. And what he realized after that was he really enjoys mentoring people. And so if you strip away everything, if he had no money, what would he do? He loves connecting people.
Yeah.
So that's what he does. He doesn't need any money, so he doesn't charge anybody anything. But if you know this guy, that's pretty awesome,
Oh,
because
yeah.
his new retirement plan is just to help other people,
Yeah.
because that fills him up on the inside. It's almost a problem when you achieve financial freedom, because then you have to stare in the abyss and say, now what?
Yeah. Well, man, two things. I was able to, fortunate enough to walk away from corporate America at 36. I was no longer a slave to labor. And from that point, I went into this, serial entrepreneur path and really went after some businesses. And once I accomplished that, I got to a place that I was kind of empty. Like I was just kind of lost. I was like, where do we go from here? And that's when I started mentoring people myself, and of course I still do it for a profit, or, I give a lot away, but I do it for another income stream. But what most drives me now is because I am passionate about helping others. And that's what filled that massive hole, because I was always chasing these accomplishments, right? It was always, I'll be happy when. And that run out, it completely run out. And at that point, I'm like, okay, so what is it? And I noticed that when I went to these real estate conferences, and I went to these meetups, and I went to, other cities to look at properties and stuff like that, when I would meet people and I would explain some of the operational stuff that I've learned that were fail points, that we failed at in business, or why we wrecked a business, or, what helped me mindset wise. When I just gave that I've learned to someone else, and they were like, oh my gosh, Eddie, like you are amazing, man. Like, I can't believe you gave that to me. And I'm like, why wouldn't I? I love helping you. And for me, that was a big thing that helped fill me back up. The other thing is, you mentioned some short books. There's the short form videos, like, reels on short videos on YouTube. Well, I seen a video that made me think of Donald Trump, and it really made sense to me because this one got me. And it was a Facebook reel. And it was Donald Trump walking next to his wife down the middle of the street. And he said, "You see that man over there?" And his wife says, "Yeah, he's a beggar. He's a homeless person." And he goes, "Yeah, correct. But that man that you see over there is worth $800 million more than me right now, because he was $800 million upside down.
Hmm.
He was in the hole for $800+ million. He's like, that homeless man is worth 800 more million than I am." And then the screen goes to the next thing, and you see Donald Trump walking down the street, and it says $2.6 billion, and that was a year later.
Mm.
And he was on Ellen DeGeneres, he was on all these different shows, and they asked him, "So what did you do?" Never give up. No matter how bad it is, never give up. And for him, there he was, comparing himself to a homeless person worth 800 more million than he is, and now he's back to 2.6 billion because of one thing. He never gave up. And then the second thing is his purpose, man. His purpose is to be a billionaire, and he will not settle for less.
Yeah, you nailed it. It's about that mindset and what you want to do and what you want to accomplish in your life. Absolutely. And just to take it a step further, I guess, what I thought of when you were telling that story was just about the idea of taking risks. The fact that he's willing to swing at $1 billion, to take a swing at, what is the difference there? $3.4 billion.
Yeah.
I meet a lot of aspiring syndicators and aspiring entrepreneurs who are working on their CRM, who are working on their email automation system. Those aren't swings.
No.
That's
No.
that's being busy. That's
Yeah.
procrastination. That's a fear of failure. And a lot of times fear of failure leads to busyness.
Mhm.
But if you want to really move the needle in your life and in your business, you got to take gigantic swings.
You do.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got to sign up for $1 million contract and figure it out in the next 45 days, or, you've got to do something creative and crazy, and that was the thing, is like some of the first properties that we ever bought, we didn't have it all figured out, but we looked at the property and we liked it. And it might have been, a 48 unit apartment building. This thing's like a $2 or $3 million deal, right? And you know, everything checked out, and I signed on the dotted line. It's under contract. I now have 30 days of due diligence and 45 days to close. And I wasn't the guy that could be the sponsor at that time. Now today it's a much different story. But I would have never got there if I hadn't have signed on the dotted line and said, "I can do this," and then had to figure it out. Like, there was an expiration date. It's not like you just said, so many people, they dig in the CRM. Well, I'm gonna get my CRM up and running so I can find a deal, and then I need to find investors, and I need to do this, and I need to do this. And then a year goes by, 2 years go by, and you still have not been any closer to buying your first deal or even doing your first business. And you just been working, like you just said, but when you sign on that dotted line and you're like, "Look, there's a financial contingency to get out, but throw those things out the window." Like, you're going to buy this deal. So how are you going to do it? You got to find a
Mhm.
partner. You got to find a syndicator, somebody that has some money, and you got to find somebody to help you manage it, because you might not have management experience. That's how I like to
Yeah,
do it. Go for it.
perfect. I just wanted to give like the psychological way, the blueprint here about how you can become the person you need to be if you have signed on the dotted line and you're like, "Oh crap." Because there's that ambivalence, right? I've been there
Mhm.
too. Where you sign on the dotted line, you're like, "Yes," and then a second later, you're like, "Oh crap, what have I done?" you know, and you
Yeah.
just got to figure it out. So here's how you do it, like according to science, is you trick your brain. You trick your brain. Our brains are super powerful. They're super elegant. They are more powerful than really anything else on earth, but they're also dumb. and easily manipulated and easily tricked. So visualization is a very, very, very powerful tool. There's a research study out on this where the researchers had kids learn a piece on the piano, right? And then they had them practice on the piano. And one group got a piano to practice on. They practiced every day for an hour. The other group didn't get a piano, but were told to practice it on the piano. So they visualized it, and they would make a piano out of their desk or go through the motions or play air piano, whatever you want to call it. After a week, the judges couldn't tell the two groups' skill level apart. After
Wow.
2 weeks, they couldn't tell the two groups' skill level apart. It took 3 weeks until the kids who actually had a piano were better at playing piano than the kids who were just visualizing. You can go anywhere you want to go in your brain. It's Michael Phelps' reason why he won all those gold medals. He said that he visualized every race 10,000 times before he raced it.
Yeah.
And visualizing is kind of cliche, but here's how you make it stick. There's two ways. One is you use your five senses. So when you're closing on the dotted line and you sign on the dotted line, you got 45 days to close. One way you can do this is imagine when you're closing on it. What are you going to see around you in that room? What are you going to see around you? Who's going to be with you? What are you going to smell in that room?
Yeah.
The pen, paper, usually kind of some nasty carpet. It's always in some like title company office with like nasty carpet. There's going to be nothing on the wall, right? It's always like the most sterile office ever where like tons of money changes hands. And, like, what are you going to smell? What are you going to taste? Are they going to pour you a cup of coffee? Think about all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second way to do this is to imagine three different scenarios here. Imagine things going perfectly well. Imagine things going perfectly wrong. Imagine things in the middle. And then imagine yourself solving all these problems.
Yes.
This is what Michael Phelps did. When he would visualize a race, he would imagine what the water would feel like. He said the water when he was in Sydney was colder, so he had to visualize colder water. He could feel the colder water. He said sometimes when he would close his eyes, he would get goosebumps from the water.
Yeah.
And visualize yourself racing that race, but and you're dominating. Next time, visualize yourself racing that race and you're behind.
Right.
You look over, oh crap, am I in last place? Or, oh crap, I've got 12 days to close. I need $2 million. I've got only 1.95 more to go, because we've all been there.
Yeah.
And so imagine yourself, what will you do in that situation? Your brain and your subconscious will be like, oh, that's what we do. We solve these problems. If you run into them and you haven't practiced ahead of time, your subconscious will freak out.
Yeah.
And this is how you train your brain to do stuff bigger than you are. As Donald Trump's good friend Robert Kiyosaki says, you don't just have stuff. You don't just do stuff to have stuff. You have to be first. You be, do, have. This is how you be.
Right. That is so true, man. And I am a testament to that because the very first motivational speech that I gave on indestructible wealth, I've always wanted to be a motivational speaker and speak to thousands of people. And it's a process, right? But at the same time, you got to be almost good before you get the role. So I cannot tell you how many times I stood in the mirror, stood in the shower, and I spoke my speech. Like I imagined that there was 10,000 people in front of me and that I was delivering that speech and when I stuttered or when I forgot something or I paused, one of the best things about motivational speaking or in speaking just in public is you take out the ums and the ahs and stuff like that, and you get comfortable with the pauses. You're okay with the pause. And that's very hard. So not only did I have to make sure I repeated it so many times that I never remembered hearing the ums and the ahs and the stuff like that, that I got comfortable with making a pause, and the pause wasn't that long. So that is so true because the first time that I made that speech and then I heard the recording, I went, wow, it's like I said that like 2,000 or 3,000 times. But it was because I did, essentially. It just wasn't in front of a crowd.
Hmm.
And from there, that's true. Like, you have to manage that, or you have to understand that you're going to make mistakes. But what are you going to do to fix it? What are you going to do? So that the second analogy was so perfect, man, because that's true. We're going to face problems, but we're going to solve them, and we're going to still close this deal. And that is where the real secret sauce is.
Hmm.
It
Yeah,
really is.
absolutely. Yeah, and you nailed it on the head there. A lot of people think that syndication, raising capital, buying big deals, it's fun to drive by a place and be like, hey, I'm part owner of that thing. All that's true. There's also a crappy side that no one tells you about, where things go wrong, where the
Yeah.
contractor doesn't show up,
Yeah.
where the wire transfer doesn't go through, where you have the wrong memorandum. You get the wrong PPM paper, or you give someone, oh, are they accredited or not? I thought you checked. I thought you checked. Oh, crap. All that stuff happens. All we do all day long, if you were to take syndication down to one definition, I think, is we solve problems.
We do.
Period.
And you got to be good
All
at it.
day, every day. There's no retiring. There is no passive income here. We
No.
provide passive income for others, and we are so mentally strong ourselves that we say, hey, you can get on my shoulders. I'll provide for you. And that's a special place to be. And it can also be lonely, and it also can be overwhelming. It can feel pressured, and holy cow, can it be stressful. And so
Yeah.
you've got to take care of yourself every single day. It's not a luxury. It's not, hey, I'll take a vacation when I raise my first 10 million. No. It's not, hey, I'm going to start taking care of myself or see that mindset coach when I get to 5 million. No. If psychology teaches us anything, it's that you will get to your first 5 million when you raise that mindset coach. You'll get to your first 10 million when you take your vacations and celebrate little milestones. You've got to keep yourself going along the way. Otherwise, you're just going to self-destruct in this business. I have not met a human yet who's able to just grit it out long term in this business without doing some pretty intensive mental work. And I'll just touch on a bit about like our client base. We work with 47% of the people that we work with are military, and we have about another 25% who are ex-professional athletes. And so these people have been through rigorous trainings and have done missions, won championships, are heroes in many different ways. And they're saying, I don't know how to do this. I need
Yeah.
help. And I think that's the real powerful thing, is saying, I need help, because this is a business of collaboration, not
It
lone
is.
wolfing it.
I get the question all the time, Eddie, what does it really take? Like, what's the makeup to do what you do? And to me, it's 3 R's and a P. And you got to be resourceful. You got to be resilient, and you got to be relentless
Hmm.
in your pursuit. And
Hmm.
that's all it is, because those 3 R's are going to be big time in your pursuit of what you're trying to accomplish, because you're going to have to be resourceful. You're going to have to be resilient when the lights go out and everybody else is, just knowing you're not going to get there. You just got to be relentless in that pursuit, and you just never give up, no matter what. Like, you just got to believe in it more than anybody else. You got to, seeing is believing, in my opinion. And before other people will believe in you, you got to do it.
Hmm.
What do you think about that?
I think you're absolutely right on. So what do you do every single day or weekly or whatever to keep yourself going and keep yourself mentally strong?
You know what? I actually had this conversation today with one of my property managers, and I said, I am a YouTube motivational junkie. And she goes, what is that? And I said, well, to be honest, even me, sometimes I wake up and I'm a little bit off. Things are coming at me quick. Of course, I pray every single morning. I give thanks, and I ask for the power to keep moving forward, and the okayness, like the blessing to it's okay. I'm going to hand up my fears. I'm going to hand up all these problems. But other than that, there's sometimes I'm listening to Ed Milet like 2 or 3 times in a day, because it's a hard day. Like I'm facing problems just continuously. And, or I have good friends or someone like yourself that, I call them up and I say, hey man, I'm dealing with this and this and this. Dude, what are you complaining about? You're Eddie Austin. You're the guy we look up to. Let's get after it. And that's sometimes all it needs is that reminder that I am the guy. I'm the one people count on. So let's go get it done. No excuses.
There you go. No excuses, sir. Love that military background right there. Were you a military guy?
No, sir. That's the only regret I have. I never joined the military. And it wasn't until probably 4 or 5 years ago, like I really had the weight of that. I really carried like the wherewithal of it. And I said, I was telling my buddy that invested in my company, he's a career military guy. And I was like, man, I really wish that I would have served my country and I would have done, I would have done something more than what I am today. And he's like, Eddie, I don't want you to ever think that again. When career military people come back from the service, they need good people like yourself that fight their own fight on U.S. soil, and they build businesses. They're entrepreneurs, and they bring tactics and purpose and give systems and processes for people that are in career military that give them hope that either they can work for you or they can do something like what you're doing. So I've read a lot of military stuff. I'm surrounded a lot of military people. So I've tried to adapt the things that fighting my own battles here, but being relatable to the military and running it as disciplined as the military. Because when you're over there on foreign soil, you can't break, right? Like it's impossible. They break you down in basic training so you do not break when there's a war going on. So I've essentially done that here with myself to make sure that when the pressure gets hot, I'm the guy you're going to count on.
Yeah, that's awesome. And how do you train yourself? Because, being under control amidst chaos is a really powerful weapon. Maybe your greatest weapon in life or business.
So
It's not a spreadsheet or computer, it's your
no,
mindset. How do you stay sharp and in control when there's chaos all around?
I could be wrong, and I want you to question me on this one, but I feel it's like it's one of my blessings because I honestly get nervous when things are going right. Like I am diligently pristine in my subjection and execution when the chaos is at its top. Like I am a top performer when it's just pure chaos. When everything is going crazy, that's when I perform my best. I make mediocre decisions when things are not as high on the pressure side of things. So I think it's years of working in a Japanese plant and working in a lot of on-time manufacturing and having the problem solved constantly. And then having that, we're going to get this fixed no matter what it takes. Like I will pull out every stop there is. There's no can't. And I also have to say, I grew up with a very tough hand that I'd get slapped if I said I can't. So I was never allowed to say that growing up. And I'm not down in my dad for doing that. I bless him for what as hard as he was on me, that can't was not a word in our house. Figure it out, but there's no can't. We're not going to try to do something. We're going to get it done. So I think as I grew up with that and then being in that on-time manufacturing and then having deadlines and even putting harder deadlines on myself, that I got to a place that I operate my absolute finest when it's pure chaos. Like if you put me in the environment where there's stuff flying past you and things are blowing up, let's go. Like I can just make decisions.
Right on. Yeah, that's quite a gift. I had some of that when I was a bartender because, well, like every good psychologist, you have to have a restaurant or bartending job also to pay the bills. It's just so fast paced, and you're
Right.
constantly reordering, reprioritizing things in your brain that you need to get done.
Right.
So you're probably 6 or 7 steps ahead while looking like you're not busy for 10 hours straight while everyone else is having fun and getting drunk and getting
Yeah.
silly, right?
I mean, growing up,
So go
sorry,
ahead, please.
growing up, maybe I have ADHD, OCD. I don't know. I never put a label on it. I never give my words power, but I was never comfortable with going slow. Like I needed it to be challenging. I needed it to go fast. And that's when that was my comfort.
Yeah. Did you grow up with a lot of siblings?
Not in the household.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Yeah, because I see a lot of people too who some people are very, very comfortable in chaos, just naturally in chaos.
Yeah, I love
And
it.
other people are very uncomfortable in chaos. And
Yeah.
so it's just finding yourself in that environment where you can thrive.
Yeah.
That's really cool that you've been able to develop that and then help other people by teaching what you've learned along the way.
Yeah. I mean, when the adversity or the world just gives you a right hand hook to the jaw, like
Hmm.
I'm grinning, mouth full of blood, teeth loose. I'm like, oh, come on, let's go.
You're a little
That
crazy, huh, Eddie?
just kind of crazy with that because I love that when life hits, like now it's going to get real. Let's get it. And,
Mm.
that took quite a bit, of building. And I'm sure that there was a lot of psychological things that had to be twisted and broken and put back together differently to get that. But that is probably one of the greatest gifts. And that's what I try to teach others is look, like we give ourselves like this fake, huge anxiety ball that we just deliver ourselves with what could happen. Who knows? But why are we worried about it? Let's let it happen and then figure it out. But I watch so many people like they go to sign on that dotted line and they start thinking before they even get to the paper, they get the pen out, like, oh man, what if I can't get financing? What if I can't raise the money? Like, screw the what ifs. Like, just do it. What if none of that stuff happens? Like, what if
Hmm.
that? Like, what if it went perfect? What if your uncle just inherited $1 million and that's what you needed was $1 million? And what if your best friend was a sponsor for you? And then what if your other friend is a broker and he has the property? Like, what if it all falls together? But you're never going to know if you're just so worried about the things that could happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's generally two ways that psychology says to attack those worries, those what if worries. Because you're right, it's not real. It's folklore because it has not happened yet. The only thing that's real is this exact moment right now.
Right.
And so there's two ways to do it. One is positive when one is negative. We'll hit the negative first. It's to totally catastrophize it, right? Let's say you sign on the dotted line. What's the very, very worst thing that would ever happen? Well, what would it be? Would it be that you can't close? We've seen that happening a lot
Yeah.
to experienced people recently. So
You're
you
not
lose
gonna
out
make
on your
money.
earnest money, right? And that sucks. And you got to lick your wounds and get back on. I would even say that the worst deal would be that you find out that there's a problem, but don't bring it up and continue and close with a problem deal.
Yeah.
If that happens, then you have a problem deal and you could lose money, you could lose your investor money, you could lose reputation, you could lose your stake in the market. But every single person who's running a mastermind and speaking from this front of the stage right now pretty much starts with their story about how they lost investor money.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's the catastrophizing part of it. You're not going to go to prison. Well, you could, with legal, but you're not. Let's assume you're not. You've got the
Right.
legal stuff handled. So, I mean, you're not going to die, right? Like no one in your family is going to like get taken. There's no Liam Neeson. You're about to be taken. Like that's not going to happen.
Right.
It's basically just you have to lick up your wounds
Yeah.
emotionally.
Yeah.
And what's the greatest thing that could happen? That's a different activity. But to stay there on the positive side is to do some cognitive restructuring. And so I teach the refi method. So that is to relax, extract, check the facts, and impact. So first of all, relax, take a pause. You talked about earlier the importance of taking a pause when you're speaking. A lot of times you take a pause when you're speaking for two reasons. One, you let the audience catch up or you make something more important. And two, you get a chance to think about what you're going to say next.
Exactly.
When you're thinking and thinking and thinking and thinking and thinking and thinking, pause allows you to just take a breath and realize you're not going to die.
Right.
Extract, remove that thought like you'd extract a tooth and look at it. All these what ifs, are these helping me get to where I want or not? If they're not, check the facts. Do I want to keep this or not? No, toss it. Thoughts are nothing more than electrical impulses in your brain.
Yeah.
So like they don't have to be true. You don't have to believe them. Most of them aren't true. And 95% of them are recurring. So it's like, what's the use in thinking that they're all real? You can just toss them. And then is to put one back that's more impactful.
Mhm.
Instead of what if something goes wrong? What if something goes wrong? Say, when something goes wrong, because it inevitably will, I'll solve that problem.
Exactly.
What if this is the deal that catapults me forward?
Yeah.
I'm gonna skin my toes and get right back up, and I'm gonna put band-aids on them, and I'm gonna meet so many people.
Man, I love that.
I don't think it was a coincidence in my story that I met my bride-to-be shortly after I bought that duplex.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was just saying different things to myself.
Yeah. Well, man, I love that. And that is so true. I'm going to use that a lot, what you just said. And, I got a buddy that 2 years ago, I called him up and I could tell that he was determined. And I said, man, what's going on? And he's like, oh man, I just lost $1 million on a deal. And I'm like, whew, man, that's a tough one to swallow. And I was like, so pause.
Mm-hmm.
You're not concerned about losing $1 million. How did you lose $1 million? Well, Eddie, right now all the brokers believe that it's best to just do hard money, EMD hard after the first 30 days. Well, we got in a hurry. We found a piece of property. I put $1 million EMD down and found out that there was some issues, and we were already through due diligence. So, because we didn't have our ducks in a row, essentially they had every right to keep my $1 million, and I lost it. And I was like, and you're not upset about that? And he goes, Eddie, I'm more upset about the $3 or $4 million on the deals that I didn't do, the ones I passed on, the ones that I thought something could not be right, or the ones I thought might not be a good deal, and my friends bought them and they exited them and made $2 or $3 million in just a couple years. Those are the ones that I'm upset about, not because I lost $1 million. He goes, Eddie, it was $1 million tuition. Lessons cost money. Good lessons cost lots. I'll make another million. No big deal. He's got a different appetite, a different stomach for that. But he's true. We miss every shot we don't take. So yeah, go lose some money if you have to lose some money, but don't be afraid of it. Go make more.
Yeah. Exactly. You got to take some risk. No risk and no biscuit, right?
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, man.
Man, this is probably a good place to wrap this thing up. It has been truly amazing spending the time with you, and I can't wait to do more of it.
Yeah, awesome, Eddie. This has been fantastic, man. Thanks for having me on. It was really cool, and I really enjoyed my time.
Thank you. Well, I'm going to stop the recording, and we'll see you on the next one.